here again, Shannon and myself, for Formation, which is a weekly conversation for followers of Jesus. One of the followers of Jesus isn't here, however. Kara, still in classes at Bright, but soon to be completed with her seminary degree. So
we miss her.
We're cheering her on.
We are cheering her on. We miss her calming presence and her insight.
So calming presence. Are you concerned that some sort of argument's going to break out because Kara's not here?
No, but Kara just has a way about her that sort of
very thoughtful.
Very thoughtful and insightful, and so
she raises
adds
the bar
a lot.
She
adds a lot to our conversations.
Yes. We miss her. She'll be back for the next episode, so we'll be glad to have her back. If you have your Bible, we are continuing in our series about fierce women in the Bible, and today the spotlight is on Ruth. So I encourage you to open your Bible to the first chapter of Ruth. This is really a fairly short story, and there's something that I found this week that I really like from a commentary about Ruth that theologian wrote. The fact that this book, the book of Ruth, holds canonical status, meaning it made it into the Bible, is in itself scandalous. The heroine in this story is not a Hebrew, but a Moabite widow who was once married to a Hebrew. In a polarized world and in a polarized church, Ruth speaks to us of possibilities that emerge when we live beyond the walls that would define us. What do you think about that? Isn't that great?
It really is, because she was married to an Israelite, but no more.
But he died. And then she was a widow. But here's the story, and it is a story where God is in the background. Mm-hmm. And it's a story about women making decisions for themselves, which was unheard of. Only because they were all widowed and without the status that would give at this time. So Ruth is a surprising heroine in this story. The story is about the mother Naomi and whose two sons married Moabite women. There was a drought, and they left Israel and moved to Moab to try to survive the famine. And while they were there, all three men died.
Yes.
So there's daughter-in-law Orpah, daughter-in-law Ruth, and Naomi, all left on their own. And it is a story about a relationship, an exceptional relationship between the mother-in-law Naomi and her daughter-in-law Ruth. What do you, before we look at some speeches that Naomi makes when they are all without their husbands, what do you think about this story as a whole?
I've always loved this story because it's interesting, and this is going to sound silly, but I've always been drawn to stories of girls or women who are the heroines. So I loved the Little House on the Prairie books when I was a kid. I loved the Nancy Drew books, even though I had a teacher who told me that I should be reading the Hardy Boys, not Nancy Drew.
That teacher didn't know what he was talking about.
But I don't know.
Resourceful women.
Yes.
I'm also thinking when you mentioned that about Places in the Heart. Do you remember the movie with Sally Field?
I do, yeah.
Where she also loses her husband and has to bring in a cotton crop and try to survive and take care of her family. So yes, you're rooting for this character who's an underdog to be tough and to survive and to think fast. And I think we have all of that with Ruth. And we have this interesting difference between Ruth and her mother-in-law who seems, as she heads back home again, to have given up, and Ruth, who is the sustaining presence, devoted to her mother-in-law and won't give up. So we have this kind of seesaw back and forth between those two women.
Right, because as you said, it's over here in Moab. and Naomi wants to go back where
she has
she's
relatives.
from, where
Yeah,
she
her
has people to
family.
help take care of her. But with these two daughters-in-law, I think they both are faithful to her, don't you?
In their own way, Naomi really wants them to stay in Moab,
Right.
where their family is,
I
and
think
start over
she's
again.
and I think she's pretty clear about that.
Yes.
I'm going, and you stay here and remarry.
And I'm leaving now. And
And Orpah follows her request.
she does. She's sobbing. She does not want to leave Naomi. She is devoted to her, but she's following her mother-in-law's instructions. And Ruth says, no, I will not do that. So I want you to read for us. Let's look at 3 different speeches made by Naomi, the mother-in-law, and talk about those in between.
Okay.
And one of the challenges here is, as Ruth decides to make the trip with her mother-in-law, she becomes a foreigner living in Israel. She's one of those foreign wives that the prophets are all saying, the reason we're not being obedient to God is because we've intermarried, and that was a mistake. So she's about to cross the border and become one of those mistakes. There are big stakes here. The first speech is verses 6 through 10.
Okay. She started to return with her daughters-in-law from the country of Moab, for she had heard in the country of Moab that the Lord had considered his people and given them food. So she set out from the place where she had been living, she and her 2 daughters-in-law, and they went on their way to go back to the land of Judah. But Naomi said to her 2 daughters-in-law, "Go back, each of you, to your mother's house. May the Lord deal kindly with you as you have dealt with the dead and with me. The Lord grant that you may find security, each of you in the house of your husband." Then she kissed them, and they wept out loud. They said to her, "No, we will return with you to your people." Keep going.
6 through, yes, that's the first speech.
Okay.
Now, just your thought on that first. They're very close, right? These aren't women who are saying to each other, "Good riddance, I'm
Right.
moving on with my life." I mean,
She
clearly
says,
there's
you've
affection
dealt
there.
beautifully with me. You dealt beautifully with your husbands. We've been family, but now I must go, and you must start a new life.
And all right, so the second speech, 11 through 14.
Naomi said, "Turn back, my daughters. Why will you go with me? Do I still have sons in my womb that they may become your husbands? Turn back, my daughters. Go your way, for I am too old to have a husband. Even if I thought there was hope for me, even if I should have a husband tonight and bear sons, would you wait until they were grown? Would you then refrain from marrying? No, my daughters, it has been far more bitter for me than for you, because the hand of the Lord has turned against me."
One more verse.
Okay, then they wept aloud again. Orpah kissed her mother-in-law, but Ruth clung to her.
So we hear a little of where Naomi's faith journey is. She feels like God has deserted her.
Yes, maybe a little bitter or angry.
These losses, her husband and 2 sons, she is...
That's a lot
she's
to bear.
Devastated by that. And all right, so a little bit longer speech that time, trying to persuade him. No, this is the whole reason we were family together no longer exists. You need to go and start over again. All right, Naomi's third speech, and this time I think we're going to hear Ruth speak up, 15 through 18.
Okay. So she said, "See, your sister-in-law has gone back to her people and to her gods. Return after your sister-in-law." But Ruth said, "Do not press me to leave you or to turn back from following you. Where you go, I will go. Where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God my God. Where you die, I will die. There will I be buried. May the Lord do thus and so to me, and more as well, if even death parts me from you." When Naomi saw that she was determined to go with her, she said no more to her.
What do you think?
Well, all I can think about is the wedding song.
Yes. So we use this scripture for the bride and the groom committing to each other I think we've used it so much that it's surprising when we go back to the source
And realize.
and discover it's a mother-in-law and a daughter-in-law. That's who the conversation is between.
But it sounds like as serious a commitment
Yes.
as one would make in a marriage, that I'm, no matter what, I mean, it might as well say for rich or for poor.
Right. So listen to this from a commentary. This word, this clinging that is going on here is similar to in Genesis when the husband and wife cling to each other, and in Deuteronomy when you shall fear the Lord your God, to the Lord you shall hold fast. That same kind of commitment that is used in other ways is what Ruth is describing. The exact same word is used to describe what Ruth is doing in our story today. She is decisive. She is all in. She demonstrates an unshakable commitment to be there for Naomi. One way to describe it, one commentary, Ruth swears an oath to do for Naomi what Naomi's husband and her 2 sons and her daughter-in-law couldn't do. Ruth promises to stay by Naomi's side. Not even death, which has been the chief resident of their household, will get in Ruth's way. I like that description. How fiercely Ruth is going to make a sacrifice. She's not going to give, we think, a whole lot of love and gratitude back from Naomi, because Naomi is impaired.
And
The grief that she's going through just makes it impossible for her to even thank Ruth for going with her. And not how that was a long trip for Naomi to make all by herself.
And I think you're right, because in verse 18 when it says she said no more to her, you can almost see Naomi just set her face and
She's just
So be it.
silent. She can't make her stay.
so be it.
But maybe she's just out of any kind of ability to love Ruth back right now, I think.
And Ruth is a constant reminder of what she's lost.
What she's lost, that's right.
Which is maybe one of the reasons she didn't want those young women to go with her. She herself wanted a fresh start, or at least not a daily reminder
Right.
of her loss. But Ruth is going to, as you said, fiercely cling to her. And sometimes people need that, maybe. It's,
somebody who's beside you no matter what.
I'm going to love you even though you
Yes.
don't want to be loved right now.
Even you don't have to, maybe Ruth expected nothing in return. Ruth was devoted in a way that was very selfless, don't you think? Mm-hmm. It was care for this woman who was now all on her own. And so listen and see if you would agree with the statement. Okay. Ruth's story tells of an ordinary and harsh human life in which the providence of God is manifest. Do you agree with that?
Read it again.
Ruth's story tells of ordinary and harsh human life in which the providence of God is manifest. We haven't seen any of God's providence manifest in the part of the story we've told now.
Right.
But once they get settled in Israel, and Ruth goes out and works in the fields and meets Boaz, and Boaz is smitten with her and takes care of her and takes care of Naomi, and they're married. That's the providence. But does that seem accurate to you, that that's God's providence, that Ruth's life is happy at the end?
Yes,
She's the great-grandmother of King David.
Well, that's what I was about to say. Maybe the providential part is that this woman plays a role, an important role in the lineage of Jesus.
Yes. So once again, overcoming that bias against foreign wives, overcoming the bitterness of Naomi, and just determined to pick the wheat on the edges of the field in order to take care of Naomi until Boaz. So I don't want to give Boaz too much credit for coming and saving the day. What do you think?
No,
So listen to this.
I do have to say that this story is where I learned the word glean.
Gleaning. That's the people with less income taking what's left over after the harvest.
I remember as a kid learning that word from this story.
Did you use it in your everyday conversation? People would have gone, "Oh, be quiet, Shannon."
But I do think it stuck. There was something about the idea of her doing that's stuck in my head, that word in particular. I don't know.
So there is conversation in some commentaries about what part of this beautiful story of Naomi and Ruth and later Boaz, what part of that story might have some Christological, might remind us of the sacrifice Jesus made on our behalf. How is sacrifice represented in this story? How would you say?
Well, obviously, Ruth sacrificed a whole possibly happy life with a husband in her homeland and children and security. She gave all that up because of her love for Naomi.
Right.
And her
So we
insistence
see her
that
in a
Naomi not
sacrificial.
walk her journey alone.
In the way that the story was told in previous generations, Boaz saves the day. Here's these pitiful women on their own, Ruth having to glean wheat in order for them to survive, and Boaz, who has some means, comes and rescues them. And the commentary that I read that I just gave you a couple sentences from says, "Oh, no, no, no.
Is that what it says? Is that a
Ruth."
quote?
No, that's me.
I would love a commentary to say, "Oh, no, no, no."
Boaz may seem to be the one like Christ who sacrifices on behalf of others. It is Ruth. Without her willingness to move away from home, away from her family, she would not have found God or Boaz. Her sacrifice was significant on behalf of Naomi. And the resolution of the story in a positive way is because Ruth was willing to do the difficult thing, which was to leave with a woman who really wasn't even kin to her.
Right.
And make that journey.
But now they're forever family.
Yes. So I think we know more about all different configurations of family now, don't we? And so this may not seem quite as remarkable now, because I think our image of what it takes to make a family is a little bit more progressive than it used to be.
Maybe in some ways, but there are other examples of people for whom family...
The family you choose and the family, yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, this story speaks on lots of levels, for sure.
Here's one more that you can agree to or not. God is so intimately involved in our relationships that it's hard to reduce God's presence to a linear equation of cause and effect. God is in the extra measure of relatedness that we need. God's power, God's character in the midst of human suffering are experienced in that extra measure. Those relationships that rescue us, that's where we see God at work. Behind the scenes, as God is in this story of Naomi and Ruth, always causing relationships that are redemptive. Would you agree with that? Have you had those relationships in your own life?
Oh, sure.
Where you look back later and think, God had a hand in that.
Yes, but I also think God would, given our ability to choose for things for ourselves, that God would also be at work if we had made different decisions. I can envision Naomi being okay if she had gone on her own and the story looking a little different.
That's a good point.
But
That's right, because the idea that our human choices would either take the path where we would experience God or totally move in a direction away from God with no chance for redemption, that would be worse. Yes.
Right.
God always working things out on our behalf.
I think I really wanted to go to a certain college, and my dad was nervous for me to be that far away from home and kind of talked me out of it. And I had always regretted not going. But then I think about all the friends that I made at the college I did choose, who have remained friends for my whole life.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure had I gone to that other college, I also would have made life. They just would have been different ones.
So God finds a way to be inserted in
Right.
every storyline that we have. So we talked about Rahab in the last episode as being strong and thinking fast and going against the king of Jericho and taking a lot of risks and looking out for her family, strategic thinker, protecting the spies. So how would you describe Ruth, our hero this week?
Well, I think it's Naomi who has the strategic mind, because, you know, later she kind of tells Ruth how to trap
a man.
Snag him.
No, but you have to describe Ruth. I know, yes. She just, that's right.
Now, I think Ruth is a little more on the contemplative end rather than the strategic end. She knows how to love, and she's going to do it.
And she's going to make some tough choices.
Right.
And never look back.
But always because of her love.
Two inspiring women, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And who do we talk about next week? I don't know.
I can't remember.
We have more women.
There are more women, but I don't have the series
looked
memorized.
ahead.
But we'll figure it out.
Continue to read through the rest of this story of Ruth.
Ruth is a short book. It's easy
short
to read.
And it's such a good story.
And it's a great story. So I hope everybody will take a few minutes and just read the whole thing.
Read all the way to the end, and we'd love to hear from you at formation@uccftw.com. We look forward to next week when Kara is back. And we will talk about another woman in the Bible that we just can't think who it is. So it's a mystery until you join us next time. Great to have you with us.
Bye. See you later.